Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 83 of Lesbian Talk. And I am here as per usual, and someone else is here who's per usual as well.
That's me. But you knew that already.
Yes, and we have a special guest. We have actor, writer, filmmaker Sean Weathers with us.
Thank you for having me on the show. Honored to be here.
You're an honorary lesbian now, so there you go.
We all like women. So.
You can use it to pick up chicks. It'll be fine.
Will do.
Please let me know. I know that you're working on Scumbag Hustler. Is it actually finished and out yet, or is it not out yet?
Yeah, Scumbag Hustler is actually out. It came out in November, and yeah, I'm working on the fappening now. But yeah, that came out.
The fappening?
Oh, that sounds brilliant.
I'm hoping it's not going to be too late because like I thought about it. I'm like that would be great for a movie if I could work it in. But I'm wrapping up production now, and then the label doesn't release it for another 4 months. So I think I'll have to reintroduce people to what it actually is by the time it comes out. So.
Well, what's the concept for the fappening? Because I remember the happening, so I'm hoping this has all the potential that I think it has.
No, it has it. Well, the happening is great for a lot of reasons, but this has nothing to do with the happening. It's actually the celebrity cell phone leak. And,
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought I was envisioning like a really great parody.
I know.
Like, oh, that's such a good idea.
Yeah. I wish, but yeah, no, there will be no trees or wind killing people in this film.
You could have a tree having sex with someone, though.
No, I thought like the tree would tell people to like wank themselves to death. And they believe it. They'd be like, I don't know, it told me.
No. This is actually the cell phone leak that came out. I think it was like last summer or something. But yeah, it was gripping for a while. But like all like current event things, like after a few months, people kind of forget what it is. So like
yeah,
I said,
I'd remembered what the word the fappening. I could not remember what the actual fappening was. So I was like playing along coolly as though, well, maybe if I pretend I know, he'll say it anyway for the benefit of the audience. And thank you.
Exactly. Why don't you just explain to the audience what it is? But I know what you're talking about.
Please, for our audience, just.
Yes, for the audience. But yeah, basically, it's just about the celebrity cell phone leak, which was mostly women. So obviously, some guys just hacked their phones, and it was I think it was mainly like iPhones because it was through the iCloud. I think that's how they got it. Yeah. So they went into the cloud and they took a bunch of naked photos and video sex tapes from phones and stuff like that. And basically, in my film, which is going to be a horror film, I play a filmmaker, which is a stretch for me. And basically, I have sex with a bunch of actresses. I record it all on my phone. My phone gets hacked, and then my career is ruined. And the only way to save my career is to kill all the women that want to sue me. So.
Oh
that's
God.
that's not going to lead to you. Is your character high at the time, or are they just stupid?
He's stupid. He does a lot of drugs. But it's kind of like how he gets there is kind of like the meat of the film. That's why I don't want to give away too much. But he's under a lot of different influences.
I just love that idea. I was like, I'll just kill them, then they can't sue me. This plan is great.
I do love films where the completely logical, end point is one character kills everyone else. It's always fun.
Yeah. That's what I was told. Like when I was trying to promote Scumbag Hustler, I was told by a lot of reviewers that they only review horror films, and that's kind of like a big issue with like zero budget filmmaking. Is that most of the stuff that sells on this level is horror. So when you do something non-horror related, people say, well, if the guy goes crazy and kills everybody, then I'll review it. So I was like, all right, well, I'll just take your advice very directly then. And the guy goes crazy and kills everyone at the end. So
That's absolutely genius. But now that you mention that, I love incredibly low budget film, and yeah, there's a disproportionate amount of horror and porn.
Yeah. I don't know what it is, but for the audience, I guess, that's what they want when they, that specific audience that like those type of movies, that's what they go for. So.
But for the audience, because I'm guessing that at least 17 people who listen to this haven't come across your stuff before. Could you sum up the sort of stuff you usually do? Because, as you just said, it's not usually horror.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I made my first film when I was in high school, House of the Damned, way back in the late 90s. I kind of bounced around a little bit in different genres, but for the most part, I guess it can be explained as exploitation. But it's different subgenres of it, like giallo and kind of John Waters type influence stuff with Scumbag Hustler, and that filmmakers in that genre kind of influence a lot of the early films I did. And now with the more recent stuff, I'm trying to go horror. But I would say like the film that most people would know me for is They Almost Die, because that film was it's sold more than like all of my other films combined, and that was like a rape revenge film. So
Yeah, They Almost Die is the one of yours. 'Cause I think, looking at the list, I think I've seen about half of your films.
mhm.
And They Almost Die is the one, apart from one we'll talk about later on, is the one that sticks in my mind the most. It is basically a remake of I Spit in Your Grave.
Yeah, it to a certain extent it is. Yeah, yeah. In more of an urban setting though.
Yeah, and having seen both of those films and the remake of I Spit in Your Grave, the official one, your one it's far more raw and real.
I think that's why people like it so much, because a lot of the people that see it and then try to contact me on social media always ask me, the first thing they ask me, was it real? And I'm like, to really rape someone is kind of going extreme.
This movie that you made, was it real? I mean, or did you just not do that? That's great.
You'd have to be as stupid as the guy from The Fappening in order to really rape someone on screen and then put it in a film and sell it.
I'm sure there's got to be someone who's thought about it out there. Like someone's like, it's the ultimate in shock, and then if I get sued, it will just make my case all the more better in the public eye. And I don't know.
I'm an artist.
Exactly.
Well, that's the I think the movie was called Snuff, but there was a movie that was called Snuff that got a lot of publicity and got a lot of sales based on the fact that they claimed there was a real snuff in the actual film.
Oh
So,
yeah, there's been a couple of films like that. I know that it's been claimed a couple of times, but someone to really do it, they'd have to be pretty thick. That's why
Yeah.
in that case it's the media being stupid.
But I look at it as flattering because they're saying that the performances and the direction, everything made it come off so well that it looked real. So I guess that's kind of what you want to aim for when you're doing something that's clearly staged and faked with actors.
Yeah, and looking through, I've seen some of your films, and the acting in your films has a tendency to be better than a lot of ones of similar budget levels,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to the people who are suffering in some way. They really know how to sell that, and it's not really a question. I just want to say I'm impressed generally.
Okay. Well, thank you. It's kind of tricky because the acting on this level can be very, very spotty at times.
Mm.
And recently I've been working with a lot more seasoned actors because I've kind of stayed insulated with a lot of my early films, and starting with The Fappening, I reached out to a lot of actresses that I've worked on at least 100 indie films, and you'd be surprised how many actors there are that have done a lot of these type of low budget films. And so I thank you for that, and that's definitely something that I'm very aware of, and I'm always trying to improve the acting, because I think that's a big deterrent on this level, is that some of the acting in these movies are not that great. And I even look back at a lot of my films and wish, I thank you for your compliment, but I wish some of the acting was even better. So that's definitely something I look to improve. I think the acting and sound are the two things with zero budget filmmaking that separates it from other films, and that makes it's super low budget, is poor sound and poor acting.
I think that there are good actors and good actresses out there. Just like some people are that don't have their SAG card or something like that, or are still really really good. But everyone's like, oh well, they just do indie stuff, and then they just don't think about it.
Yeah, I mean there are some actors too that are SAG that are willing to work with you on non-SAG films as well. It just takes a little bit of effort to find them. But I think another reason why horror sells a lot at this level more than any other genre is people are willing to accept bad acting in horror more so than other genres, especially dramas and stuff like that. They look at it as par for the course if there's a bad acting in a scene.
Yeah, plus you give a film a nifty cover with an interesting title, and you'll get a bunch of stoned or drunk kids at some point will be like, "That looks cool," even if it's shit, they'll pay for it. Or
Like Replicator.
yes, Replicator is amazing.
I have not seen that one, but I think the filmmaker is on my label too, because I do see that film pop up a lot on the MVD, which is the label I'm on their website. So I think they distribute that movie.
We bought it. I think we actually bought it new on Amazon. It was only like $7. and it was just quite an experience. Replicator was
Yeah,
quite
this
an experience.
science machine goes awry and turns people of various sexes, ages, races, whatever, all into these big-titted bimbos who are part alligator.
They're all nymphomaniacs, but if they have sex, then they become alligator-headed kill machines.
And if they bite you, you turn into a gay zombie.
That sounds
And that's just
pretty
gotta be like one of those things you're sitting around eating pizza, like, oh my gosh, you guys, what if? No, this will be great. Listen.
Well, you said you made your first film, House of the Damned, when you were in high school. Now, how do you I know a couple of people have done it, like Don Coscarelli, but how do you get to making a feature film in high school?
Well, I was very lucky because the guy who was like my filmmaking partner for up until this last film I made, The Fappening, he did a film like something shot with 16 millimeter. So he had a lot of experience, and I'd put out an ad. I forgot where I put it out. I don't think it was Craigslist. I think it might have been something like lower grade than that, because this was at a point where like I don't know. It might have even been like a newspaper ad, like a local paper. I forgot how it was, but he had responded to it. It might have been MySpace even. I don't even know. But he responded to it, and he had a lot of experience. So he was the one that actually told me, like, hey, you should take this short film and turn it into a feature, because it actually was a short initially. And he kind of like guided me through the process for a lot of it. And so it was, yeah, it was the people I was around. And the only people that I added to the cast were friends and family, and he actually gave me some professional actors that had read for his film.
Well, that sounds cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Kind of like have like a built-in mentor.
Yeah, exactly. And that lasted for a very short period of time, because, after about one or two films, it's like, all right, I don't need you telling me what to do anymore, but you're still making films with them. So, but yeah, we managed to last for a really long time, and we plan on making another film after I'm done with The Fappening. And it's actually going to be it's going to be something like Replicator in a way, and something like The Fapping in a way, in that, like, it's just like, what's a crazy concept we can come up with? Not quite as crazy as Replicator, but a little bit more controversial in The Fappening, and it's going to be called Michael. I think it's Michael Brown was the black guy that got killed here in New York for selling Lucy cigarettes. Yeah, I'm in New York, so it's really big here. So I'm trying to get on that bandwagon before it's like The Fappening and people don't know what it is. But it's going to be called Michael Brown Zombie Cop Killer. So.
Oh, so good. I love films like that.
Oh, that's like so inappropriate, but at the same time, I can see where this is going.
Exactly.
I want to see that.
I'm doing that, and also a guy named Jerry Landy. Like a lot of people, like with social media now, will buy your films and then like contact you or whatever. But there's a Bronx filmmaker called Jerry Landy. He did a film called Blood Marsh Raccoon, and he actually bought a couple of my films. He loved them, and then he contacted me. We started talking. And he was the one that actually helped me with The Fappening, which is going to be part of Vault of Terror 2. Vault of Terror 1 is a DVD that came out within 2013. Mm-hmm. And The Fappening is actually going to be like a wraparound story for a bunch of short horror films on Vault of Terror 2. So I'm working with that with him. And I told him about a bunch of movies I wanted to shoot. I also told my partner. And my partner was like, hey, we should do that zombie cop killer movie together. And then Jerry was like, hey, we should do this other film that you want to do together. And I'm like, well, I don't have time for all of these things. Do you want to direct it? So he's directing it, and I'm starring in it. And it's going to be based on the Bill Cosby controversy. And it's called, what's the title he's calling it? Bill Huxtable, Serial Rapist. And that's what I'm shooting right now. So.
Oh, no.
Do you wanna...
I was expecting a pun on Pudding Pop. I have to confess, I really was.
Yeah, we're trying to stay away from, like, I'm not playing him like too close to Cosby and doing the voice and the pudding stuff, because it's going to be a lot darker than that. But yeah, it's a take on that whole situation. So that's another one I'm working on as well. So those are the three films I have coming out. And as far as the films I do have out, I definitely suggest like Scumbag Hustler or like They All Must Die for people to check out. The other ones are like more if you're so like diehard fans of mine. Maybe the other film that we're going to be talking about later too is another one people should check out as well.
Oh yeah, it was really interesting.
So, Scumbag Hustler, like, give us a rundown. So, if people really want to see this movie, what would you tell them about it?
Well, I would say that it has a lot of sex. So if you like a lot of sex, that's in there. So it's part three things. It's part softcore. It's part like drug addiction comedy. dark style, like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and then it's part like really, really guerrilla John Waters style, where it's just like I'm just it's like me and the guy shooting me, and we're literally just walking around in like McDonald's, in Starbucks, in Target, and I'm just going into their like I went to the Target dressing room, shot up some drugs there, went into the McDonald's and Starbucks. We shot scenes there. We just grabbed actors and myself and my cinematographer, and we just went on the streets of New York and walked around doing different scam scenes and things like that. So it's very, very guerrilla as far as filmmaking goes, and it's very funny, and there's a lot of drugs and a lot of sex. So
And see, how could anyone say no to that?
I know if you like those things, then you're gonna like this.
I really like how your stuff has a dark tongue-in-cheek element to it. I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but Ron Atkin's Schizophrenic movies.
No, I'm not.
Don't watch them. Don't do it.
Okay, these are a trilogy I reviewed, and it's about a crazy bald guy from New Jersey who just rapes a bunch of people, murders a bunch of people, and is deeply bigoted towards every group possible. After I saw the third one, I had this genius idea because Mel Gibson was in the news about how he being a complete racist asshole like he is, and so I sent an email to this guy Ron Atkins. I don't think he knew that it was from this person who'd reviewed some of his movies because I've reviewed all three of them. And I suggested that he just do a fourth Schizophrenic movie, but rename the main character Melvin Bibson and have him be a former, Hollywood A-lister who fell in hard times. And all I got from the director was, "We are not making any more Schizophrenic movies," like, in a really angry tone. I'm like, oh, it was a joke. It's still a good idea.
These movies are so disturbing that she wants to have the star of them, the actor, on, and I'm kind of squicked out by that. I'm like, I don't want to. I know he's an actor, but
I'd like to, but I have no contact with him, so I don't know.
No, when we were on vacation, I had a nightmare about that.
You actually reviewed. These are the films you reviewed for your show, right?
Yeah, Schizophrenic, the Horror Mangler.
I did see. I saw 3 episodes, and was there like a crossover with like another film franchise?
Yes, Cuckoo Clocks of Hell was the crossover with Last House on Dead End Street.
Yeah, I saw all 3 of your reviews. The funny thing is, like, when I see your reviews, I feel like I've watched the movies, because your reviews are, like, really in-depth, and you show, like, a lot of footage from the films. But, yeah, I saw your reviews from that. I thought that those movies were really, really out there, yeah.
I find they have a charm all of their own, but having seen a bunch of Ron Atkins films which are not Schizophrenic films, I think a lot of that charm comes from the main character / actor.
There's no charm. What are you talking about? There's no charm involved. That guy is crazy. I mean, I'm sure he's a good guy, the actor, but I'm just saying. I mean,
But yeah, Diamanda, I'm a huge fan of your show. I think that's how I first reach out to you and send you some of my films. But some of the films you review are really, really out there, man. They are sick. I don't know how you get through some of. There was like a vomiting one you did, and I had to stop the review like 5 minutes. And I'm like, I can't watch any more of this.
Oh, I've done 2 of the vomit ones. I got 1 more to do in that trilogy.
I won't. I told her those are the only of your reviews I won't watch. I'm sorry, I can't do it. I've got that evolutionary thing. I don't want to watch people mouth.
But yeah, audience, you heard it here. The director of Scumbag Hustler says that my review far out stuff, and that's too harsh for him. Yeah.
Yeah. I love. I'm more of the fan of like the stuff you do that like the exploitation stuff. But yeah, I try to watch all of them, but some of them I love you and your style, but just some of the movies that you cover, and when I see some of the footage, I'm like, I can't get through this. It's too much.
Oh, Where the Dead Go to Die.
Yeah.
Have you seen that review?
I'm not.
If you haven't, look up the trailer on YouTube when we're done. Oh my god.
That's the hellish CGI animation one I reviewed last year.
I'm not sure. I know I saw a cartoon one. I don't know if that was it.
It was just really, really horrible.
Is it one with like a dog?
Yes.
I actually made it through that one. That one was really sick.
The director of that's he seems to be a really nice guy, and I talk to him occasionally on Skype.
Yeah. That one actually wasn't so bad because it wasn't like real people. Some of the stuff with the real people and vomiting and stuff like that, that's harder.
But enough about my stuff. We need to talk about your stuff.
Yeah.
So honey, what did we watch last?
We watched your 2006 opus, Hookers in Revolt. So Sean, how did you get the idea of crossing? Sorry, doing a loose adaptation of Animal Farm involving prostitutes.
Well, I think I'd sent like a bunch of ideas to my partner Aswad Issa, who's the guy that was mentioned before. I didn't mention his name, I don't think, but I sent him a bunch of ideas, and he had mentioned that that one was a pretty good idea because at the time, I mean, he does cinematography for me. So at the time, he was we had taken a hiatus, and he was doing a lot of photography. So he knew a lot of models. So he was like, "Listen, I have a bunch of models that may want to be in this, and this is a good idea because we can get a lot of pretty girls in it." So I was like, "Okay, cool, I'll go with that one." And I'm not a person who can sit down and read like 1,000-page book. So a lot of the books I've read are kind of like 300 to 500 pages, kind of within that Animal Farm range, in like 1984 and things like most people read in high school. I think the longest book I've ever read was like maybe Game of Thrones. So I was looking at some, adapting some material, and I thought like Animal Farm, yeah, I'll do that. And I don't know how I decided to combine it with hookers, but I just probably thinking like, how can I get these girls into scantily clad clothing? Is probably what got me there. Um, but yeah, that's kind of like how the idea for that started, and that's actually the first film that I was director and star in, and now like I star in all of my films. So, because I think like I'd done prior to that the last film I had finished was 2002, and between 2002 and 2006 when I did Hookers in Revolt, I started a bunch of films that I never finished because the actors that I'd gotten for the lead ended up dropping out on me at different points for different reasons, and a lot of things went wrong. We were shooting with a camera that wasn't ours because that was around the time when HD first took off. Now everybody has like HD on their cell phones, but there was a time when HD was very new technology and not everybody on my level had it. So we were borrowing a camera that wasn't ours to shoot HD, and then the guy whose camera it was didn't have it insured, and it was really expensive, and we were worried if it broke while we were using it or anything happened that like, we'd have to pay, pay him back for it. So there was a situation where I couldn't finish a film because we couldn't use the camera anymore, and a couple of films where the actors dropped off. So I was like, screw it, you know what? I'm just gonna star in the film. So if anything happens, like I'm always there to like do reshoots, or if anything goes wrong with production, like I'll always be there. So Hookers was like my first time as the lead as well. So it was interesting for that as well.
It really worked quite well. Now the unfinished films, they became the unfinished works of Sean Weathers.
Yes, which I always tell people, don't buy it. It's terrible. But people end up saying, "Oh, I'm definitely gonna buy it because you say that," and then they'll message me on Facebook, "This is terrible." But I would say only if you're like a film student, or if you're a hardcore fan, or if you want to know what not to do to get that DVD.
Or if you're sent a copy by the maker himself.
Yes. I would definitely.
I never realized until fairly recently when I was looking at actually the dates of when your stuff came out, because I thought most of the early stuff came out a bit later. I didn't realize you had like a 7-year hiatus between Hookers and The Trade-Off.
Yeah. What happened was I kind of with They Almost Die, when I had taken that and all my movies to distributors to try and get like a deal, They Almost Die kind of killed a lot of my deals because it was too extreme for people, that were looking at it. They're like, we can't sell this, we don't want to sell this, we don't want anything to do with you. So for a while, I was distributing my own films. So it wasn't until 2011 that I got a deal where someone was willing to take all of my films, and that's with MVD, the label I'm with now. They also release a lot of Beelzebub stuff, which I think you've reviewed a few of his films.
Oh, yeah, I have reviewed 3 of his stuff. Zombie Christ, Forgive Me for Raping You, and Dollar Morte.
So yeah, I mean, if they're willing to take his stuff, they'll be willing to take mine as well. So yeah, we're actually label mates. But yeah, it wasn't until 2011 that they decided to take my stuff. So while we didn't have a distribution deal, we didn't want to release a lot of our new stuff. So I'd actually shot The Trade-Off in 2008, but because we re-released all of our stuff again in 2011, all of our old stuff, we just wanted to promote it for a while, and that's when I really got into the podcast that I do periodically, called Full Circle Movie Talk. And I'd focus on just really promoting the podcast and the old movies, so that kind of pushed The Trade-Off back. But The Trade-Off was actually shot in 2008 and released in 2013.
Ah, clever, interesting.
So for those of you who don't know, Hookers in Revolt is pretty much a retelling of Animal Farm. And I knew that going into it, but it was still fun to be like, oh, I bet they're supposed to be boxer. Oh, they're the old goat that complained, but I forget his name. And then so my wife's here, being like, oh, that's great because she hasn't read Animal Farm. Sin.
Well, it's nothing against Animal Farm. It's just I have issues with reading fiction. I prefer I read factual books. But I noticed like you listed all the characters at the end, and so Omega was like, "Oh, I knew that one was supposed to be that character. I knew that was supposed to be that one." And I'm sitting there being like, "Yay! The one who had a lot of sex was called Emmanuel. That's clever."
Yeah, we wondered if that was on purpose.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. I think this should be a required alternative if a kid doesn't want to read Animal Farm. They'd be like, I saw the movie. It's called Hookers in Revolt. Here you go. It even says it.
Hopefully they're of age to see.
That's a parent-teacher conference
Exactly.
right there. But so we had a very important question as we were reviewing it. So you play the main character. And so we can't help but notice that the main character has a character flaw whereby when things are about to get real, his shirt opens up. And reveals that you have not just a 6-pack but a 16-pack.
Yeah, it looks like you're carved out of some kind of wood. It's amazing. You look like a statue, like a Greek statue. It's amazing.
Well, thank you for that. But yeah, I think what happened was I'd always played sports as a kid, so I was always athletic when I was younger. But once I started making films, I really put on a lot of weight. And it wasn't until 2004 where Aswad, my partner that I referenced before, talked me into doing a short film and got me in front of the camera. And that was A Good Samaritan in New York City. And that's a short film that's on Vault of Terror 1 DVD. And after I'd done that and I saw myself on film, I'm like, if I'm going to be on film, I really got to get myself into shape. So over that 2-year span, I'd really gotten into shape, and I didn't want it all to go to waste. So any opportunity to take off my shirt, I definitely took full advantage of it in Hookers in Revolt.
Yeah, dude, if you squint, you could mistake you for like a werewolf in Twilight.
Hopefully the acting was a little bit better for me than some of those Twilight people.
Now, I will tell you what the favorite part of my movie was. My favorite part of your movie was, and it came right at the beginning, where there's the one drug dealer is always like, hey, yeah, you know what I'm saying? I am so fly. Hear me with my khakis and my fishing hat. And then she's like, whatever, just walks away. I was like, that's great.
Yeah, I try to get as much cool one-liners in there as I can and stuff like that. But I definitely think like this, at that point, I think I was still refining the type of filmmaker I want to be in. I'm kind of getting into that zone now with my newer stuff. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad when people contact me on social media and say they like my old stuff, because kind of doing it on this level, you feel like every film before the last film you made is just like, oh God, I hate that. This new thing is really where it's at right now, you know? So it's like, as much as I like my old films, I really like, I'm very self-conscious of watching it and hearing people praise it, because I'm always looking at the negatives that happened. Because like so many things go wrong when you're making like indie or guerrilla films. Like what you envision the film out to be, it never turns out that way. And it's not a lot of times where it's like incompetent filmmaking. It's like actors not showing up, actors showing up and not knowing their lines, not having access to locations you want, having to compromise your vision in a lot of ways just to get the movie done. Because, you know, as you know, with the DVD unfinished works, you definitely don't want to start something you don't finish. And I think like most indie filmmakers, for them the accomplishment is finishing it, because I don't think, like, I would say like 50% of indie films don't get finished, you know? They just end up just being something someone started and it's not done.
I'd probably put the percentage a little bit higher. It's an unforgiving section to work on.
Yeah, we know a lot of folks that are always in trying to raise money to make the small movie, or have done so on editing. I know that we had some friends on the West Coast who all got together to make a movie. I think it took like a long time to get that one out.
Oh God, I completely forgot what I was going to mention. It was going to be groundbreaking as well.
But I have a question. So, like I said, a lot of the folks that watch our show are into indie filmmaking or watching indie films. If you had to give a bit of your accumulated wisdom for the past, I don't know, like 10 years, what would you tell people? Like if you were to sit down and say, here's exactly how you should do it. Don't do this, it's bad. Do this, it's great.
Tell people in terms of what? Like, what would be the...
Yeah, like if they come to you fresh-faced and say, I'm going to make movies and it's going to be great and nothing will ever go wrong. They're like, oh, oh my
I
God.
would say the first rule of indie filmmaking is Murphy's Law. What can go wrong will go wrong. So the thing is, like, I've known people who, for the last 10 years, that have been talking about making their magnum opus and still haven't made one film yet, you know? So I would say just shoot, just get something done because don't wait for the perfect budget. Don't wait for the perfect anything. Just have something recorded and just have something, especially in this day and age. When I started, it was a lot harder. But now, like the camera I used for like my first few films, they pale in comparison to like the crappiest camera on the crappiest cell phone right now, you know? I think it's easier now than ever to get films done, and I hear too much about people talking about getting their first film done and years pass and they don't have it done. I would say just shoot, just get anything recorded and just cut it, put it together and put it out there and just get feedback from people. You know, I would say that that would be the number one thing is actually have a film done before you start calling yourself a filmmaker.
Do you think that there's been some kind of elitism of the people who were indie filmmaking back when it was 16 millimeter compared to any college kid, with an iPhone now? Or some people like, I did it back in the day. And have you encountered that from people, who are senior filmmakers to yourself when you start?
No, no. I mean, obviously it's a lot easier now, and we don't have a lot of the difficulties that people had back then. But I've interviewed a few of, some of my favorite filmmakers from way back when, Horsha Gordon Lewis, and a few other people, and they're happy that things are easier now than ever. They don't begrudge us at all.
I don't know if you've ever seen any of the films by Brad Jones. He otherwise known as Cinema Snob. But a lot of his earlier stuff that he did before the Cinema Snob movie and Hook or the Heart of Gold, looked. I think it was filmed on VHS, but it had this sort of ultra, sort of gritty sort of a look to it. And I saw a similar sort of look in Hookers in Revolt. I'm guessing you used mini DV tapes for it, or maybe HD tapes for Hookers. Am I in the right ballpark for that?
Well, first of all, yeah, I actually interviewed Brad Jones. He was the last interview I did on my podcast sometime last year.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
yeah, he's pretty cool. I actually want to interview you, but then I stopped doing the podcast because it was just taking up too much time away from filmmaking. But
Brad's more
yes,
important than I am.
no, not at all, not at all.
Brad's a class
Brad's
act. He's a
local,
handful.
and that actually like I my computer was acting weird, and I could only do the podcasts with people in the States because the way I was doing it was with a service that didn't go international.
Oh,
So yeah, so I couldn't have done yours because my computer was on the fritz. So Brad was out of necessity because of
We're gonna tell him. Guess what?
pure necessity.
necessity over you. But I really did want to interview Brad as well. Um, yeah, but yeah, as far as back to hookers, that was the first film I'd shot with my HD camera. But again, HD was new back then, and again, people aren't going to really know a lot of this stuff. But there were these cards you have to put into the camera to able to record the HD footage. And at the time, the cards were like 4 to 8 minutes long. I think now those cards are like up to 32 minutes long. So literally, you would have to pay. The cards I think were almost like a couple grand. I think like 2, 3 grand for the cards, and they would record like 4 or 8 minutes. So
Oh,
it was very
jeez.
difficult to get a film done
They would do
because
like over this.
then you had to transfer the footage off of the cards because after they fill up, you have to get them off. But to get them off, it was longer than real time. So if you recorded, let's say 4 minutes, to transfer that 4 minute take, it would take maybe like 8 minutes to transfer it off of the card. Then you delete the footage off the card, put it back in, and then you record again. And that was very difficult at the time. It was very expensive. So even though I had my HD camera, that was actually the last film I had shot with mini DV tapes, and then everything after that was with
Uh,
HD footage.
yeah, I use the like when I'm recording my reviews, I use HD mini DV tapes, and I know a lot of people who do reviews use cards, and it's like if it says you describe, I'm like I'm glad I don't use cards now.
Yeah, the cards are way cheaper now, and they hold a lot more footage. But again, this was back in
That's good
2006.
because what you were dealing with sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, it was very difficult at first because the first film we'd actually shot in HD was the trade-off, and there was a lot of difficulties because you didn't know, like, there wasn't enough people that did it. Like now, like if you have difficulty, you can go on YouTube and just Google whatever equipment you're using. You're gonna find like a million tutorials and people telling you what to do, and forums and stuff like that. But back then, it was still new. So even in 2008, 2 years into having the camera, it was still very difficult to use. And you'd go in forums and you'd hear horror stories of people going out, thinking they're shooting a bunch of footage, and then go back home and then nothing's recorded because to circumvent the price of paying like a couple grand for a card that only has like 4 to 8 minutes of footage, people would buy these hard drives that would attach to the camera, and then the footage would be recorded onto that hard drive. You would take the hard drive off of the camera and plug it into your computer. But these hard drives, I think the one we got was called Firestore. They didn't signal to you any type of through the camera that you were recording. So you wouldn't know you would hit a button, but it wouldn't record through the camera, it would record onto the hard drive, so you wouldn't know if you're recording or not. And again, you go on these forums and you'd hear endless filmmakers talking about like I shot a whole day of footage, I went back home and nothing was on my hard drive because it wouldn't let you know you're recording. So we actually had that difficulty in the trade-off, in that we had like a full day of shooting that we shot, and we went back and checked the hard drive and nothing was on it. So a lot of that technology
Oh,
was very
jeez.
difficult. Now it's super easy, and even though like I'm not someone who shot, like you were saying before, back in the day on like 16 millimeter, I'm still someone who had a lot of difficulty in the early 2000s with HD, and I'm not bitter at all for people who can just do HD on their phone right now and just transfer it in a few seconds, you know?
That
So
sounds
I'm just happy.
horrific. I mean, the worst thing I ever had in that sort of vein was I recorded my Naked Killer review, and when I'm recording, I have the camera like HDMI to a big TV. Someone watches the footage to make sure it looks okay, and then either them or someone else sort of feeds me my lines. But it was the first time we'd recorded in like a completely new location, a new house, new stuff like that. So stuff wasn't set up properly, and the footage ended up blurry, and the people who were watching it, they thought it was a problem with the TV because the TV got knocked in transit or something. I came back and was like, no, the footage is blurry. It's not the TV problem. So I had to record it again. But, geez, yeah, that pales in comparison.
Yeah, yeah, it always sucks for stuff like that, but yeah, I'm not bitter about stuff like that. It's just learning new technology, and technology is always going to change unless you're shooting on film, which is kind of, those cameras are kind of like, like machines, so they don't really update much. You just have to like retool them. But if you're going to use like a lot of digital equipment, stuff is going to change all the time and get easier. So I'm happy when it's easier, and I'm not bitter like for the stuff I went through before. I'm just happy that it's easier like now to get that stuff done. So
This is a little bit of a tangent, but I have to say, if it would amuse me no end if you managed to get a hold of some really, really beautiful 35 or 70 millimeter film and you made the most scummy film you could think of with it. Make it look as beautiful as possible. So like a Godfrey Reggio film, but just with a bunch of people being horrible. It would be amazing.
Serbian film was kind of like that. That was shot well, and that was very horrific. Have you seen that?
Serbian film, I have seen big chunks, but I haven't watched it simply because I want to watch it with someone else who will freak out about it. Because I know I won't. Given the stuff I've seen, I'll be fine. But I want to see someone else, and laugh at their pain.
No, I
So I
get
haven't
it.
watched it myself yet.
Yeah,
Divorce
it's
fine.
pretty out there. It's really sick, and it's nice to look at because it definitely has a huge budget. But that would probably be the only thing I can think of in the vein of what you're saying, where it's just like a beautiful, well shot film on film and not video, and big budget, and it's just horrific what they're doing. So
Yeah, so if you're listening and you have access to a 70 millimeter film thing and a bunch of film, someone give it to Sean.
please, I'll take it.
Just to see what will happen.
Yeah.
Well, here's a question. Like, if someone comes to you and they're like, I'm an eccentric billionaire. Here's as much money as you need, as much equipment, just knock yourself out. If you had an unlimited budget, what would you do?
That's a good question. I've never had an unlimited
I,
budget.
let me make a suggestion. Fall over and faint for being surprised.
No, no, no. I mean, like, what kind of film would
Yeah,
you
yeah, I
do?
know that's what you're getting at. Man, that's a really good question because that's the funny thing is like when I first started making film, I think that's the reason I was able to get a lot of features done like early on is because going into a film, I was never someone who thought that like, okay, I want to make Star Wars or whatever. And I think that's like a pitfall a lot of people fall into is like they go into it thinking about what they want to do. I go into films thinking what I can do, you know? So that would have to be a total mindset change from like what am I capable of doing based on my resources, which is how I always think of a film going into it, to like, Jesus, I can do anything I want. Jesus, that's a tough one. Um, I don't know. I would just say like I would definitely want to travel, get a lot of locations in there, but I don't think I would do anything differently than what I'm doing now as far as the type of films, but just do it with a bigger budget. But otherwise than that, I have to put a lot more thought into it. But yeah, just doing the same.
Remake Hookers and Revolt with like Kim Kardashian or something.
If I had that type of money, I would get real actors.
So it would basically be the Tarzan sings the Fall black exploitation style.
It would be anything, anything. If I had a lot of money, I would just do anything. I would just start shooting and figure it out as I go. That's basically how I shoot now, anyway. With Scumbag Hustler, we didn't have a script. We just went out there and just started shooting footage. It's like, okay, I'm going to play a crackhead in this film, and I went out. I did a lot of drugs in a lot of different places. And as we're going along, it was like, all right, we're starting to have an idea of what this character is and how this film is going to look. And I didn't write the scripted scenes until we had shot like half the film already. So sometimes it's like that. And there's also like a lot of scam scenes in Scumbag Hustler, and all those scams were just ad-libbed.
When you say you went off and did a bunch of drugs, was that was that in the character or did you do that for real? Because doesn't that sound a bit dangerous when filming?
Yes, it is dangerous when filming. No, I've never done real drugs on a film. It's all fake. But
Okay.
people always think it's real, so I'm flattered when people think it's real. So
Well, there's a part in Hookers and Revolt, and he like hands her this thing, and I'm like, that is the hugest like rock of crack I've ever seen. And then she gets back, and it's like just pills in aluminum foil. I was like, oh, okay.
yeah.
I didn't even know they made crack that big.
Yeah, Hookers and Revolt was interesting because we actually shot it in two waves. There was one group of girls and then a second group of girls we had shot the film with. Because the first day of shooting, we had everyone on set, and we had not shot anything for a couple of years. It was 2 years since we had shot a film. So it was kind of like a bad way to start because we had the entire cast on set, and the crew was only 3 people, so they outnumbered us by a lot. And yeah, they ended up like taking over a lot of stuff, and I had to end up like dropping a lot of people off of the film because the situation just got too compulsive. It's like, when you have a lot of actors start talking like, are you being nude in this film? Well, I'm not being nude. How much are they paying you for that? How much are they paying you for this? And people start comparing notes on what they're doing and how much they're getting for what they're doing. And and the situation becomes more social than a work environment. It kind of gets toxic real quick. So a lot of the actors, I'm sure you might be able to tell the way it's shot. A lot of the actors aren't in the same scene together, so that's why you don't see like a lot of group shots, because there's a lot of scenes in that film where it was shot like a month apart, and people didn't even know each other, met each other, and they're talking to each other.
I'd picked up on that at least a little bit. But then again, I tend to film skit parts of my own reviews like that as well.
Yeah, yeah. That's part of the necessity of doing low budget films, is that you come into issues like that. People can just walk off and there's no consequence. If you're working on a Hollywood film, you're under contract to not walk off.
Well, I like stuff like that. Like, so a lot of the stuff, is obviously we're filming in like, someone's apartment and stuff like that. So I notice all the details. And drug dealer's like, so let me tell you what. And he's got this really great like pink and purple bead curtain in the background.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, that's ever so manly, dude.
Yeah, the guy.
Drug dealer bead curtain. I love it.
Yeah, the most femme grandmotherly backdrop in the film, while this guy was yelling about how he wasn't anyone's bitch. It was hilarious.
And it was great because this is epic. And it was obviously two of the drug dealers were like, no, it's cool. You have your epic monologue. We'll wait. And he's just going on. And I just kept waiting for someone's grandma to walk in and be like, did you boys watch this? It was great. I love stuff like that. Yeah. Or like when she's like, I'll give you a deal, crooked cops. And they're like, we need to go into the kitchen and talk about this. And they're like, all right, near the stove, let's talk about this. And there's like dishes in the sink. I was like, I wonder if everyone was like, get your dish out of the sink. We're filming today. Oh,
No,
fine.
it's real.
Let's go.
It's real.
Let's go.
Yeah, you know what? I'm lucky enough to live in a three-family house that has a duplex and a basement and a backyard. So that adds up to 5 floors and a backyard. And I've made those 5 floors and a backyard look like so many different locations for so many characters. It's unbelievable. And a trick that I also do that I started doing recently, I think with like a film I have coming out in a couple months called Ace Jackson's A Dead Man, is I would just have characters walking into different apartments and different houses just to get some establishing shots because it was all my place. So it's like, all right, let's get the outside to look like it's at least someplace different. And then when you get inside, it's just my, 5 flight house redesigned to look like 8 different locations. And we'll just walk into 8 different places to make it seem like it's 8 places. So
Whenever I made my bitch slap review, we had this whole bit at the start where some characters were storming someone else's like base and like killing people, and I realized partway while writing, and I was like, wait a sec, we have to film this in the same place we film our usual stuff. So I just had to insert a line in saying, for someone's confused about the fact that their villain had apparently recreated our place in perfect minute detail for some reason.
No one suspected. We got away with it.
Yeah, that happens a lot. That happens a lot. When I write my scripts, I make sure everybody's in a different location, and sometimes like you just have to change dialogue on the fly, like what you did. Like there are plenty of scenes where it's like, all right, like, I'm out of here. Like I'm out of here, and I was like, wait a minute, you got to take that line out of there because this is still your character's house. We didn't get a second location. It's like instead of I'm out of here, you get out of here. So I'm familiar with having to change up a little bit of dialogue to make the same location seem reasonable when it's supposed to be something else in the script.
And in my entire history of doing sort of silly film related things, the most ridiculous way I did anything like that was, okay, I had run out of time, so at the end of the day, I just got a bunch of people. They were filming this bit where they were talking, so I just filmed them from really far away and then dubbed them on later. And have you ever had to do anything that ridiculous?
Yes. In a couple months, I have 2 films coming out: Ace Jackson's A Dead Man and Mandingo Sex Addict. In Mandingo Sex Addict, there's a character that plays my best friend, and that actor walked off set. I don't know what it was, because when I'm acting and starring in a film, a lot of things go over my head. But a lot of people kept telling me he was acting very weird throughout the shoot, and I thought he was, I didn't know what it was. But he just couldn't get any of his dialogue right. And he was actually an actor that was in a lot of major stuff, and he was going to be like the first name actor I had in one of my films. But he disappeared. So we couldn't use a lot of his footage, but we had shot the film when there was a lot of snow underground. And there was one scene where there's a long conversation with us, and because he couldn't get his dialogue right, we did an extremely wide shot, and we were just going to dub over the dialogue later. After he dropped off the film, I still wanted that location in there. So even though we'd recast another actor for the part, because the shot was so wide, we just had that other actor dub in his voice.
I've actually heard of stuff like that happening in big budget filmmaking. Like there's a couple of shots in James Cameron's Aliens where the back of Hicks is played by James Remar. But
I didn't even notice that when I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't tell it's him. But yeah, Remar was fired after like 2 weeks of filming Aliens, so they reshot some stuff. The issue you had, that's almost identical to what happened on The Room, but Tommy Wiseau took the complete opposite thing and just had another actor play the part for the rest of the film and act as though it's the same guy.
No one will know this. That's my Tommy Wiseau.
Oh man, The Room. That is one of my favorite low-budget films ever made, man. That's just awesomeness.
I don't know if you can call it low budget. It had a budget of $7 million.
What?
Yeah.
Where did all the money
We
go?
don't know.
Yeah, I heard it was a couple million. I think that's what low budget is called now. I think like the films that I do are called like zero budget or pizza budget, or as Brad Jones would say, shot on Shittio. But yeah, I think a couple million is actually what low budget is, according to SAG at least.
Wow.
A couple million is low budget. So
I'll take a few million to make a movie. I mean, I'm sure I can think of something.
I'll take a few hundred thousand. I don't even need a million.
Although you always do hear about people that took like $6,000 and made a movie, and it becomes like an indie underground cult hit. So.
Oh yeah, Astron 6 are particularly good at that.
Oh, Manborg was I love that film, and it's insane how much money that. According to them, like I read up on they said it cost like $1,000 and they shot it in their garage. I don't
Yeah.
know if that's true, but if that is, that's amazing.
I think
That,
it cost a little bit more than 1,000, but they definitely filmed. I've listened to the director's commentary, and they filmed the vast majority of it in the basement or the garage or something. But probably because half the guys who worked on that work on Hollywood movies as like special effects and makeup guys.
yeah, I'm sure a lot of that cost. I'm sure, like you said, it probably cost a little bit more. They maybe that sounded like a good number to like for press, but yeah, you're right. It's probably because people who would command big salaries probably did it for nothing.
Yeah, it's like, if you're already an incredible effects artist, you don't have to spend the $20,000 on incredible effects.
Exactly. That's why I play the lead in all my films because I don't have to pay a lead actor, and I just have to pay supporting actors.
Although there's the other funny thing about Manborg is, you know that at the end of the DVD you've got the short film Biocop. In the original version we saw of Manborg before it came out in DVD, we saw it at Troma Dance. It didn't have that, and when they got the contract for the DVD release, and apparently the film was too short for it, and they lengthened the credits and the outro and everything and the intro as much as they could, but they still were too short. The contract demanded a film of a certain length. So they had to go off and spend more money than Manborg cost on making Biocop and sticking it at the end just so they would reach contract length for the film.
Oh wow.
One of my favorite stories about insane low budget stuff.
Yeah, I went to Trombadance that year, which was in a really weird, kind of ratty looking bowling alley in Asbury Park, New Jersey. And it was just randomly on the first night. I was like, "What is this? This is amazing. This is awesome." I'm like, "Oh, it's Manborg." And I'm like, "Ah." I followed Astron6 on Twitter. I'm like, "When?" And like, "Oh, the DVD's not due out for like 2 years." So we're like, "Oh."
Yeah, that was Asbury Park was about 20 minutes from the Quick Stop actually, where Kevin Smith worked and made Clerks, which was cool.
Yeah, but that was kind of scary because we made the pilgrimage. Like, "Oh, we have to go see the Quick Stop." And it's not a very good neighborhood anymore. And there was like some like young bubbas giving us the eye. We're like, "Oh, we should probably go."
Another nerd. Nerd.
Yeah. Speaking of trauma, Lloyd Kaufman's actually going to be in the Fappening as well.
Oh,
Awesome.
wonderful.
Yeah. He's cool. I interviewed him for my podcast, and he called me a star fucker throughout the whole interview. I don't know why, but I put that. Can I curse on this?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I gave him like I made him call me star fucker in the movie as well. But yeah, Trump was kind of interesting because there's a lot of people that Lloyd Kaufman, he's like a love or hate type guy. He's not like an in between. Like every time I bring him up to people, it's like, oh, I hate that guy. Oh, he's awesome. So I don't know. I like him though. He seems like a cool guy.
I've seen Lloyd in enough films that I'd love to see a film where he's playing someone who he's can't speak and can't move. Maybe he's like paralyzed from the neck down and can't speak or something. Just because he's constantly moving and constantly being so energetic, it's like, no, Lloyd, I like you. For once, I want you to be completely still. Play a coma victim, just for the novelty.
He's capable of it. He's a very high energy guy.
Now we met him at that Troma Dance, and I got him to record an intro for my friend who does a radio show on internet radio show, and he went on for like an hour, like a minute and a half, and he like called the show by the different name 3 different times. It was great. And he's like, "I'm here with Toxie," and he like pulls the guy playing Toxic Avenger. It was great.
Yeah.
But we are coming up to the end of the podcast. So, Sean, if people want to see your stuff, if they want to know more about you and just generally love the social media out of you, where can they go?
Well, I'm on all social media sites. The one I'm on the most is Facebook, and it's facebook.com/Sean Weathers. And my official website is Full Circle Movie Talk. Full Circle Movie Talk. That's my podcast. FullCircleFilmworks.com. And yeah, if you go on my website, FullCircleFilmworks.com, you can find all my links. And like I said, if you just search my name, you'll find plenty of naked pictures of me with my abs. You'll find all my social media links, and it's SEAN Sean, and then Weathers WEATHERS.
So I know that immediately all of you are going to flood those sites. Take them down because you're so excited. It's going to be just like when Stephen Fry tweets something because we are just that popular.
And Sean, is there anything that we didn't bring up that you wanted to bring up, from your career, from your films, anything like that?
No, I would just say, like I mentioned before, I mean, if you're not familiar with my stuff, which according to my DVD sales, the only thing you're familiar with is They Almost Die, is if you haven't checked out They Almost Die, I'd say that's a good place to start because if all of my films sold like that, I would do this full time and I would have big budgets. So They Almost Die seems to be the film everybody likes. As far as critics go, they seem to like Scumbag Hustler, and it's my newest one, so I'd say check out that one. Those would be two films that are out that are good to start with. In a couple months, Ace Jackson's A Dead Man and Mandingo Sex Addict will be out, and then look out for The Fappening, followed by that, Bill Huxtable's Serial Rapist, and then followed by that.
I'm actually kind of curious about it, but I have to admit.
And then followed by that Michael Brown zombie cop killer. So yeah, and if you follow me on social media, I have videos of behind the scenes footage of the films I'm currently working on and trailers for the stuff that are already out. So
And if you want something a bit more highbrow, go to see Hookers in Revolt.
yes.
Or
Seriously, you need this because then when you write your dissertation, in college, you can compare it and then really seem like you're so highbrow and everything.
or you could just read the novel adaptation Animal Farm. Orwell's a hack, ripped you off.
'Cause
Orwell's actually one of my favorite writers. So
I do have to confess though, because of the outside shots looked a lot like Philly, I was really expecting Philly accent instead of everybody, and I was like, oh.
no, everything is New York for me. New York, Brooklyn and Manhattan specifically. So
I just want to say, Sean, that if you want me in your film, if I have a Lloyd Kaufman-esque sort of stipulation that if you get me there, I will do anything you want, darling.
awesome. Actually, you were actually supposed to be in New York last year, right? But that trip fell through.
Yeah, I was supposed to be over doing some stuff in Philadelphia and then come over to New York. But yeah, it did fall through. But with Omega has moved over here. I'm over in the States less.
Mhm.
But we're going to be in Philadelphia this summer after Con Bravo, though.
Yeah, let's talk off here and figure something out, like closer to that date. And yeah, I'd love to have you in my film because I'm genuinely a fan. That's how this happened, is because I was a fan of your show and reached out to you. So yeah, thank you for having me on your show. And yeah, when you're in Philly, hit me up and we'll figure something out.
Woo!
On that note, thank you, Sean, so much for being with us. You guys, Giovanni's trivia question will return next week. I'm sure you're all heartbroken. But for us, that's been a Lesbian Talk episode.